So kind of informal. Afterwards, please, if the family wants to join, have you join them for a little late lunch in the other room, okay? So stick around. I'm sure they don't want to hear from all of you, okay? Well, they would. Okay. When I start out, I'd like to do a prayer for those of our fellow country people that are in the military. Merciful Lord, I humbly pray your almighty protection for all those in the service to our country. Help and strengthen all those in the righteous struggle for the preservation of liberty and justice for all mankind. Joy. Okay, like mother, like daughter.
Hey, she's gonna hear about that. Judith Susie May Dargontina died at Brookdale Memorial Care, January 29th, 2020, following a long battle with dementia. She was 73. Susie was born on May 9th, 1946 in Ely, Minnesota, to her parents, Stephen and Rose Pluth. She graduated from Ely Memorial High School in 1964 and Pine City Technical and Community College in 1966. She married 67? Jason says 67. Your obituary is wrong. We've got to take Jason's word.
My fault.
Also Jason's fault. She married Albert Dargontina in 1969.
Yes.
This is true. She lived and worked in Ely as an administrative assistant for the Ely Medical Center. Susie also worked for the state of Minnesota for more than 25 years with positions at Vermilion Community College and the Minnesota Department of Revenue. During that time, she also enjoyed teaching community education classes at VCC, specializing in early versions of Microsoft Office. Susie was a patient and supportive teacher with a passion for computer literacy in older adults. She retired in 2010 and spent her remaining time in Ely with the Ely Clown Band, the Lutheran Church Choir, and counting money at the Ely Area Credit Union. Susie is survived by her two sons, Jason, Lisa, and Kevin Dargontina, brothers Richard and James Mutz Pluth, and she is preceded in death by her parents, Stephen and Rose Pluth.
Me? My turn? Okay. Again, thanks everybody for coming. Yeah, I was think about these times, like who's gonna show up for my funeral and stuff. So yeah, I'm really glad to see everybody here. So thanks very much. As a lot of you already know, my mom had a rough go the last few years of her life. So I'm going to choose to talk louder. Okay. So my mom had a rough go the last few years of her life, and so I'm just kind of remembering back to when I was young and when I was growing up in Ely and some of the memories that I had. Lisa actually helped me with this, and she calls it Susie Tidbits. I like that name. So one thing that later in life, I always appreciated about my mom and didn't realize how hard it was until I became an adult was, you know, in the 80s, the economy wasn't very good, and there were a lot of layoffs at places and whatnot, but we always had money. We always had food on the table. We always had clothes. She was always able to pay for things, and she kept this red book and kept cash in the little red book, and like utilities would be here, oil would be here, food would be here. So as many of you know who worked with her, she was very organized and really took pride in that running of the house. I'm a bit like my dad in the sense that Lisa handles the money, and so you know, and work. I touched on work a little bit. You know, the special thing I remember most about her work was that she made a lot of good friends and special relationships through her work life, and I think those relationships lasted for as long as she lived here. So I know that brought a lot of joy and fulfillment for her life. She had some hobbies. I don't know if you guys know, but she was a frequent bowler in her early days. She spent a lot of time traveling with the bowling ladies. She loved crocheting, especially like those little dish rags or dishcloths. I would bet money half of you guys in here have one of those dishcloths. I know I have several. And she really, in later in life, she loved to walk. Like, walking doesn't seem like a hobby, but when she was in her facility, she was never sitting down, always walking around, and the workers at the facility just talked about what a joy she was to work with, because she was always bubbly and walking around. So even though she wasn't quite herself, she still kept that bubbly personality. She certainly enjoyed her time in the clown band and in the church choir at the Lutheran church. But really, outside of listening to music, I don't think she had a musical bone in her body. But that didn't stop her. And yeah, just some of the things I remember when I was a kid, some food that she would make for us. I always remember her making egg rolls. And I always thought, how could somebody from northern Minnesota be good at making egg rolls? But they were good. And pizza, I remember rolling out the pizza, how you roll it out and stretch it, and lots of swear words. But my favorite thing that she made was this round steak with this mushroom gravy over rice. I mean, I'm sure we've all eaten that. I loved it. I don't know, I probably wouldn't eat it now. But, and then traveling. Later on in her life, she was able to travel to many places far and wide. She took a trip to Slovenia. She went to Hong Kong. She went to Germany for Alicia and Bill's wedding. Went to visit her brother Rick in Chicago a few times. West Virginia to visit Patty and Mike Vukolich. And she visited duty in Mississippi. So I know that she enjoyed traveling quite a bit while she was still able to do so. So I guess to close, I mean, this, is a celebration of life. Even though Susie had a shorter life, it was pretty full, and we can all agree that we're better off knowing Susie, or as I like to call her, Mom.
I'm back. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jory Bowen. I'm Gloria Bowen's daughter, who was one of Susie's first cousins. But I have to say, since my mom was an only child and my dad's family was from Ohio, I always referred to her as Aunt Susie. She was very much my aunt growing up and always. And unfortunately, my mom is in Texas right now, and both her and my dad feel horribly for not being here, but I am going to read a few things on her behalf. And there's definitely some overlap with Jason's, so we maybe should have coordinated on that. But I guess it means that we knew her well and we knew her hobbies and passions. Dear family, friends, classmates, and past co-workers of Susie, I'm so sorry that I'm not able to attend the memorial service for my dear cousin. But thank you all so much for coming and for allowing me to share some memories and thoughts about Susie through my daughter. Susie was the sister I never had. My first recollection is of attending her 8th or 9th birthday party, sitting on the back steps of the Pluth House on Sheridan Street, now the Sergi's parking lot. There I sat amongst all these big kids, all in our best ruffled dresses, except for Susie's best friend, Dennis Probilski, who, needless to say, was not wearing a dress. Most of those kids at the party eventually became the Ely Memorial Class of 1964. Susie's classmates were always important to her, and she maintained many friendships with them throughout the years. Susie's mom, Rosie, also known as Shorty, and my mom, Josephine, known as Peppy, We're sisters, along with our other aunts and uncles on the Moffitt side. Fran, Joe, Mary, Angela, Ike, Totsie, John, and Sweet. Family was important. There were so many family gatherings and memories, many at 141 Central Avenue, our grandparents' home, which was also a boarding house and tavern. My first solo adventure, in fact, was going to Clune's store with Susie as my watchdog. One important family story that we always shared took place during a gathering at our grandparents' when many of us cousins were playing outside on the sidewalk. Now there was a glass panel door to the tavern, and somehow, amidst the excitement, Susie put her hand through the glass. We were frantic. She was bleeding profusely and ran away and hid. She was worried she was going to get in trouble with the adults, and the adults were worried that she was off somewhere bleeding on her own. Luckily, Uncle Tots eventually found her. She was not in trouble. She was okay. The years passed by so fast, but I do have some memories. I can clearly remember Susie's little phonograph in the front living room of the Sheridan Street house, listening to Sam Cooke singing "You Send Me." I think my lifelong love of 50s and 60s music came from those early times listening to music with Susie and our cousin Patty Mikulich. All the cousins played such an important role in my life during those years. I would pore through their yearbooks, memorizing names and faces. I certainly looked up to them. Adventures continued to happen during the teenage years, many involving Susie, and many that, well, can't be talked about here. But those were some special times. Skip to Susie going off to Pine City after graduation to secretarial school, along with Francine Morris and other classmates, and eventually returning to Ely to begin a long career working at the clinic, the college, and the revenue. At Susie's wedding to Al Dargontina, she included me, along with Jeannie, Carol, and Jane. And forgive me if I've forgotten anyone, but I'm sure Jerry Fink will fill in any of the gaps. He was there too, as one of Al's groomsmen. Then came the two boys, Jason and Kevin, Susie's absolute pride and joy. And again, I was lucky because I got to babysit those boys. They were so happy-go-lucky, energetic, and fun. They have turned into fine young men who did the very best they could to care for their mother. In later years, we had many family gatherings at Susie's house on the highway with booyah, ham, and pizza. Can you tell we're Slovenian? And lots of other good food. Susie was a great cook and a great hostess. She also did wonderful handiwork and spent many hours crocheting and making items for family and friends. Susie was such a kind and caring person. She was always willing to help others. She did many favors for relatives on both sides of the family, including Al's Auntie Eva and Uncle Oni, and her friends knew they could call on her when they needed an extra hand or an extra pair of hands to help do the dishes. Maybe things didn't always go the way Susie had wanted or planned, but that did not stop her from continuing on with a very busy and productive life. She spent time with friends, played cards, traveled, taught classes, played in the clown band, worked hard, and somehow always seemed to be smiling and laughing. She did have her priorities in order, though. She had a little sign on her desk at the college that said, "What constitutes an emergency in your life does not constitute an emergency in mine." Even years later, I had many of her coworkers come up to me and comment on that sign. And then it seemed much too soon, Susie slowly started to leave us. As the dementia began to take over her life, we couldn't help but notice the changes, both overt and subtle. I visited Susie several times, and at her room at Brookdale, there was a little sign posted outside her room. It said, "My name is Susie. I'm originally from Ely. I love to walk, and I love Elvis. So that's what we did when I was there. We walked and we walked and we walked around the facility, and we sang Elvis songs. Sometimes the entire time. And Susie laughed and laughed and laughed. Until the last 2 times I visited, when she no longer laughed. And that broke my heart. Dementia may have taken away Susie's memory and her zest for life in the end, but it didn't take away our memories of her. And I, for one, am so grateful that she was such an important and memorable part of my life. I'm sure you're here today because you are grateful for the part that she played in yours as well. Thank you, Susie. We love you. We'll miss you, Cousin Gloria.
I got a text from one of Susie's classmates, and I think this hits home. She had a perpetual smile, definitely. It was always fun to be around. So, in closing, first, my condolences to the family. Oh, Rick wants to talk? Oh, come on.
Hi, I'm Rick, Susie's oldest brother. I left Ely in 1955. Susie was 11 when I left. I remember when she was born. And there's only 2 people in this room that know Susie longer. Me and my brother. When she was born, I looked at her and I said, you know what? She's different. Not like my brother. When I was 11, I wasn't very worldly. So I remember when my mother would take us all and bathe us all at the same time.
Why not?
She'd carry us on her shoulders, and there was something different. Eventually I figured that out. Some of my fondest memories, even though we didn't have a lot of time together because I left 65 years ago. Shortly after she was a teenager, shortly after she was born, my brother and I eventually moved upstairs in our own apartment in the house on Sheridan Street. Prior to that, we lived in 4 rooms. The 5 of us. I don't know how we did it. We did it. Anyway, we had our own bedroom and bathroom up there. And I would invite all my high school friends to have parties up there. And Susie would sneak up at 11 and try to figure out what was going on up there. And she really liked a lot of my friends. So that was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with that. One of the things that I also remember is I helped her make pizza a couple of times, and the swear words were there, but not only by her, by me as well. And I remember we had a recipe for canned peppers. We canned peppers a couple of times, and I brought that recipe down to Illinois with me, and my deceased wife and I made peppers together a couple of times for that recipe. One of the things that I remember, I'm not sure when this was, probably in the 80s, I arranged for a trip to Disney World for my family. And I had some work commitments. I was in San Diego, and I had to meet my family in Disney World. So I called Susie, and I said, how would you like to go to Disney World on May? I said, go yourself, Orlando, and I'll take care of everything else. And she did. We all got together, somehow we met. Oh, we had so much fun. That was one of the best times we ever had. It was so great. What a great memory. What a great memory. Susie was living out on the highway. I would come up often with my family. I remember one time we rented a small RV, and I had 3 kids. They were smaller then, and we parked in your driveway, and we slept out there.
Yeah.
And one night, in the middle of the night, tremendous shaking in the RV, and it was a bear. RV. Of course, we were all scared to death. We didn't know what to do, but anyway, it was
Happened a
out
lot.
there.
Yeah.
Anyway, as much as I miss her, I always remember the good times. She's the only sister I have, and she's gone, but I have the memories. And like all of you will miss her. She was such a great lady.
Does anybody else want to say something? Okay. Again, on behalf of myself, my condolences to the family. And on behalf of the family, I'd like to thank you all for your attendance and support. Would you please join them for some light luncheon with some continued memories? Thank you.